Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm here with my cat Leia, and I'm doing my August 2017 book haul. Except that it's not an August book haul at all, or even a 2017 book haul. So far this month I've been really good, and I haven't bought any new books. Of course, the month is only half over, so who knows? But in light of that, and since I've only been doing book hauls this year, I thought I'd do what I've done a few times before and highlight some books that I bought last year in 2016. So in this video, I am highlighting the books that I bought from my library bookstore. So I have 14 books here. Would have been 15, but one I actually gave to my mother. And though I got them throughout the year, or really throughout 2 trips, I think, to that bookstore. So I guess I can't pat myself on the back too much, but they were cheap, used a bookstore, you know. And because I got them last year, I've read a few of them. By no means most of them, or even half of them, but some of them I have read. So I'll talk about them when I show them. This first book I have not read yet, but I read The Dovekeepers by Alice Hoffman. I've also read some of her other books, but The Dovekeepers is my favorite. It was my favorite book a couple of years ago that I read. And then I went on a kick of wanting to read some of her fiction, particularly her historical fiction and her Jewish-themed fiction. So this one takes place in a Coney Island freak show around the turn of the 20th century. And it features Eddie Cohen, a Russian immigrant who has run away from his community and his job as a tailor's apprentice, going from the back. But also I'm inferring from his last name, of course, that he is Jewish, so that there will be some Jewish historical aspects to this novel. This one I have read as part of my Sammy Rohr Prize Reads project. I'll link to that below. This is Accidents by Yael Hedaya and translated by Jessica Cohen. And it's an Israeli novel that is largely a domestic drama about writers and single people trying to get their acts together in Israel. And I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was kind of long, kind of rambly, but pretty good. This next book I found on the Jewish Book Council's website, so I added it to my TBR, and then I found it in the bookstore. It's The Explanation for Everything by Lauren Grodstein. I'll read from the flap. There is nothing inherently threatening about Melissa, a young evangelist hoping to write the definitive paper on intelligent design. But when she implores Andy Waite, a biology professor and hardcore evolutionist, to direct her independent study, she becomes the catalyst for the collapsing house of cards surrounding him. As he works with Melissa, Andy finds that everything about his world is starting to add up differently. Suddenly, there is the possibility of faith. But with it comes responsibility and guilt, the very things that Andy had sidestepped for years. Professor Waite is nearing the moment when his life might settle down a bit. Tenure is in sight, his daughters are starting to grow up, and he's slowly but surely healing from the sudden loss of his wife. His life is starting to make sense again until the scientific stance that has defined his life and work is challenged by this charismatic student. So yeah, this story has controversy written all over it. I'm interested to see how she deals with this subject. Of course, it's fiction, so the focus usually would be on what the characters believe and come to in their lives. It's not necessarily a scientific treatise, which I enjoy that. I'm a fiction reader. I like going into what characters think and believe about their lives and their work. And I believe the professor is your stereotypical atheist Jewish professor, but I'll have to read it to find out. Next, we have Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. It's a popular novel on BookTube and in the wider book community, I know, and her latest novel is coming out very soon. This one came out a couple of years ago. It's the story of a Chinese multiracial family in the 70s, and where a daughter commits suicide, and then it goes through the lives of the family members, and it seems right up my alley. I love family dramas. I love looking into how diverse communities live in America. In 1970s America, there must be interesting things to say about the Chinese-American experience and the experience of people who marry into that community. So definitely really looking forward to this. Now we're back to a book that I've actually read again, huzzah, again for Sammy Rohr, and it is Disobedience by Naomi Alderman. Some people might recognize Alderman's name because she recently won the Bailey's Prize for her more recent novel, The Power. I'm really looking forward to that book, especially because I loved this book a lot. It is a story about the British Haredi community, ultra-Orthodox community, and about a long-lost daughter who became secular and comes home. It's about same-sex attraction in that community, which can be difficult because of the traditional values, and about different politics within the religious community. And I just thought it was wonderfully done because, you know, these are the types of stories where it's so easy to take a side and say one side is evil and one side is good, but I think that Alderman really showed this community with a lot of empathy, and really made characters who evolved beyond, you know, these stereotypes about, you know, secular versus religious or whatever. And I just found it very moving and very empathetic. I definitely recommend it. Then this next one is a novel, The Remains of Love by Zeruiah Shalev, and translated from the Hebrew, while I'm in here, let me see, it's Philip Simpson. And I'll also read from the flap since I'm in this section of the book. Hemda Horowitz is nearing the end of her life. As she lies in bed in Jerusalem, the present flickers in and out as memories from the past flood her thoughts. Her childhood in the kibbutz spent under the disappointed gaze of her pioneer father. The lake that was her only solace, and her own two children, one whom she could never love enough and the other she loved too much. Avner, the beloved child, has grown up to be a heavy, anguished man, disillusioned by his work and trapped in a loveless marriage. When visiting his mother in the hospital, he witnesses an unknown couple's final poignant moments together. After the man's death, Avner becomes obsessed with finding the woman, and a strange and delicate relationship unfolds. Dina, Hemda's daughter, has put aside her career in order to give her teenage daughter Nitzan the warmth she never received from her own mother. But Nitzan is withdrawing from her, and Dina is overcome by a longing to adopt another child, a longing that, if fulfilled, may destroy her fragile family. At once a meditation on the state of modern Israel and a profound exploration of family, yearning, and compromise, Zeruiah Shalev's newest novel is electrifying. Well, I can speak for myself. This rings all of my bells, so it's electrifying to me. We're talking family drama, we're talking Israeli issues. I am so on board. This next one is Days of Awe by Lauren Fox. It's another one that I found through the Jewish Book Council website, and what do you know, the library was unhauling this one, and I got to have it. From the flap, here's what it's about. Celebrated for her irresistibly witty, strikingly intelligent examinations of friendship and marriage, Lauren Fox, she got blurred by Bachiko Kakutani, who said, an immensely gifted writer, a writer adept at capturing the sad, funny mess that happens to be one woman's life. That's a good endorsement from a very famous reviewer. Anyway, Lauren Fox has written her most powerful novel to date. Days of Awe is the story of a woman who, in the wake of her best friend's sudden death, must face the crisis in her marriage, the fury of her almost teenage daughter, and the possibility of opening her cantankerous heart to someone new. Only a year ago, Isabel Moore was married, was the object of adoration for her 10-year-old daughter, and thought she knew everything about her wild, extravagant, beloved best friend Josie. But in that one short year, her husband moved out and rented his own apartment, her daughter grew into a moody insomniac, and Josie, impulsive, funny, secretive Josie, was killed behind the wheel in a single car accident. As the relationships that long defined Isabel, wife, mother, daughter, best friend, changed before her eyes, Isabel must try to understand who she really is. Yeah, I know we're sensing a theme, family drama, relationship drama, identity drama, and I'm pretty sure this is a Jewish family because of the Jewish Book Council endorsement. Well, Days of Awe refers to an important Jewish holiday or intersection between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, actually, so I'm curious if that'll fit in, although it's not on the book flap, so who knows, although the book flap doesn't always tell you everything. But yep, definitely looking forward to getting to this one too. This one I was very excited to find at the bookstore. It was written in 1964. This copy seems to be in really good condition. It's Up the Down Staircase by Bill Hoffman. And I have to admit, the major reason I'm interested in this is because Bill Hoffman is the granddaughter of the famous Yiddish story writer and playwright Sholem Aleichem. So I'm really interested to see what she is up to in generations past her grandfather's life and death, and what she has to say about life in mid-century America, I believe. And here's her picture on the back for anyone who's interested in that sort of thing. Actually, come to think of it, I think I got The Remains of Love and this book from the local JCC used book sale and not the library book sale. Whoops! Oh well, they're here. I'll talk about them anyway. But that's why they're missing the definitive sticker from the library. Things that only I care about. Anyway, I've read this book. This is The Two Family House by Linda Cohen Leugman. I read it for my book club. It is another family drama about an American family, or two American families, who live in a townhouse together in the 40s, and about the husbands who work together. I believe they might be related, and the wives who raise their children together, and there's occasional drama and some tragedy, and it's your standard familial drama story. Who knew that I'd like things like that? I thought it was decent. I thought it was a pretty good story. Not, you know, outstanding, but definitely interesting to get a look into that life. Always also a little, you know, disconcerting from a historical standpoint, because this is the 40s, and in America, you know, that means something very different for Jews than it meant in Europe. And a lot of Jews weren't as tapped into that world. They had their own domestic drama going on and weren't as aware, some of them, about what was going on abroad. So here's this domestic drama, and it's always disconcerting to think of what might be happening to your brethren somewhere else when this is happening here. Something a little less traumatic, but you know, life is life. Then I went on a Michael Cunningham kick because I loved his novel The Hours, and I thought, well, hey, I love that one, so there's a bunch of backlist at this bookstore, so I'll go buy some. And so this is this one is Flesh and Blood, and I'll read from the back. This novel follows the Stassos family through 4 generations as it's transformed by ambition, love, violence, and accumulating history. Constantine Stassos, a Greek immigrant, marries Mary Cuccio, an Italian-American girl, and they have 3 children, each fated to a complex life. Susan is oppressed by her beauty and her father's affections. Billy is brilliant and gay. Zoe is a wild, heedless visionary. As the years pass, their lives unfold in ways that compel them and their parents to meet the ever greater challenges. Zoe raises a child in New York with a transvestite friend, Billy searches for love and battles with his father, and Susan raises a son conceived in secret whose explosive emotions bring the book to its climax. Yep, it follows some similar themes for me, family drama, and this goes into some new issues, some new types of immigrants, and I'm particularly interested in the Italian-American aspect because apparently I'm only interested in my own identity as a Jew and Italian-American. But there's so much else in here too about the gay culture and just about various generations. I love multi-generational stories to show how things shift and change, and I think if it's anything like The Hours, I think I'm really going to love this. And then here's his book By Nightfall, a bit shorter, easier to hold up, and from the flap I'll read. Peter and Rebecca Harris, multi-40s denizens of Manhattan's Soho, nearing the apogee of committed careers in the arts. He's a dealer, she's an editor. With a spacious loft, a college-age daughter in Boston, and lively friends, they are admirable, enviable, contemporary urbanites with every reason, it seems, to be happy. Then, Rebecca's much younger look-alike brother Ethan, known in the family as Mizzy, the Mistake, shows up for a visit. A beautiful, beguiling 23-year-old with a history of drug problems. Mizzy is wayward, at loose ends, looking for direction. And in his presence, Peter finds himself questioning his artists, their work, his career, the entire world he's so carefully constructed. One thing I was thinking of a lot when I was reading this is that I watched Ron Charles's hip video book review about this. Ron Charles is the book editor of the Washington Post, and he puts out his own sort of booktube videos. I don't know, he's not officially part of the community, but he does do these sort of satirical book reviews on the interwebs. I mean, through YouTube or through video. And this one is particularly funny, so I'll link to it below. And finally, one of Cunningham's latest novels is The Snow Queen. I didn't really connect to this one as much. It's about two brothers. One is gay and one has a girlfriend dying of cancer. And you know what, maybe this is crazy, but I might read from my own review. This story follows the middle-aged Meeks brothers, Tyler and Barrett, both of whom undergo a sort of spiritual awakening that is tied loosely to Tyler's fiance's battle with liver cancer. That's one thing I kinda didn't like, that the fiancée, Beth, is basically a stand-in for any sense of plot, and not so much her own character, though she does have a tiny bit of dimension. My biggest problem is that the novel started out rather prosaic and inaccessible, which led me to read it more slowly when I should have been reading it more quickly so that I wouldn't lose the story. But we were dropped way too deeply into Tyler and Barrett's psyches before I had time to latch on to them as characters. I fared better with their friend Liz, maybe because she was introduced later and was somewhat more secondary, and her problems were far less existential. That's my Goodreads review, FYI. I review everything that I read on Goodreads. It's supposed to help me remember them better, but I guess when I don't remember them so well, at least I can read from the reviews on Goodreads, so huzzah. These final two I've also read, so I feel really good about these purchases. I've justified buying them. This is Invisible City by Julia Dahl. It is a mystery thriller novel that's set in a Hasidic community, and it's one of my only forays into the mystery thriller genre. You know, there's a murder in the community, and this one detective who actually was abandoned by her Hasidic mother who, you know, ran away briefly to be secular and then had a kid and felt guilty and went back home but abandoned her kid, yada yada. Anyway, so she has, you know, emotional resonance with this Hasidic community, and she's on the case, and it's about her butting heads with the community and ultimately finding a way in, and all of the other trappings, I believe, of this genre. But I admit I'm not very familiar with it, and it wasn't necessarily my cup of tea. I mean, this genre is very, you know, plot-driven. There's not as much nuance and character development, and I know I'm sounding like a literary snob, but, you know, it was okay, but it wasn't really my thing. And finally, I read this one pretty recently. I know I've had it up here pretty recently on this camera. This is The Three Weitzmans of Westport by Kathleen Shine. It is a Sense and Sensibility retelling that takes place in an upper middle class Jewish community with a recent divorcee and her middle-aged daughters taking refuge in a cousin's slash Holocaust survivor who became a big philanthropist and had a lot of money to spare, and, you know, gave them his home because they were thrown out of theirs, and you know, different types of romance ensue from that. I thought it was cute, a little charming, you know, a little romantic, nothing really much more special than that, but you know, for what it was cute. It was a nice read. So that covers it. I've talked so much that my companion has come back to me, but I think I'm gonna wrap it up now. If any of these books sound interesting to you, let me know. I'd love to talk about them or any other books, and thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.